surface because, again, that's involved in stuff. It's decayed material, but it's still organic and it'll burn. So that's a fuel source. Bituminous is a little softer coal than anthracite is. There is some digging involved, but not a lot. But the deep mines where all of the coal dust and stuff is anthracite. So, and here's a nice miner, and showing the mine. And here's a cart that the stuff comes out on. But nowadays these things are motorized. They don't have animals down there doing it. So what does this look like if you actually have a coal dust that you've inhaled? It causes this kind of effect on the lung. And actually this, if you cut into it, all of this material is the coal dust that's accumulated inside the lung. That would be fairly difficult to breathe with. And here are some pictures, radiographs showing that. Why do you think you see this stuff on the surface like this? What's up here? Well, it's coal dust, but what's it in? No, that's not a bronchus. That's way up down on the surface of the lung? No. Those are the lymphatics. So, how would you get rid of something that you inhale and is trapped down in your airways? You try and get it out through your lymphatics if you can't brush it back out again, or breathe it out. And this is a dog, and this dog has this anthracosis. But actually, he doesn't really have anthracosis because this is not due to coal dust. What do you think this is due to in his dog? And this is a dog that was, actually this is out of that Cornell collection. This dog was probably 1960s. So how did he get this? What state is Cornell in?
New York.
New York. New York is famous for really big cities. And what do you have in really big cities? Lots of automobiles. And they have exhaust. And does that exhaust burn completely? Now, we're not talking about now in electric cars and all that stuff. But back then, did they burn? No. They put out this smoke out of the exhaust pipes. This was before catalytic converters and all that. So as a result of that, if you had an animal that was in a city environment, he could very well come into contact with a lot of dust, vapor actually, from partially burned fossil fuel, and that would do the same kind of thing. So that's what this is in this dog. And that's showing it microscopically in the airways. Now, what's the end result of having that stuff in the lung for a long period of time? The alveoli will die, and what will they be replaced with? Scar tissue or connective tissue, that's what that is. So in a person that has a really, really severe, or an animal that has really, really severe coal dust in the lung, this is the end result of it. Plus this. What about this alveolus? Is that a normal size for an alveolus? Nope, it's hyperdistended. Now, somebody says, COPD, COPD. What is that, anyway? What does COPD stand for? Pulmonary disease, okay? Now, what happens in that situation? The airways get blocked by exudate. Usually this is associated with some kind of allergic response. You get hypersecretion of mucus and constriction of the bronchi, the bronchioles. So, what happens when you constrict all of this stuff like that? What happens? A person with COPD has problems inspiring or exhaling.
Inspiring. Exhaling.
Wrong.
Both. Yes.
Respiration, inspiration is active. You have muscles contracting to help you get stuff in. The intercostal muscles contract to broaden your chest, and your diaphragm contracting goes down to make more space in the thoracic cavity. So that's an active process. What is expiration? It's due strictly to the elastic recoil of the lung. Now, that's passive and not active because no muscle contraction is involved. If you have all of this in here, what kind of elastic recoil are you going to get? Very little. So air stays in the alveoli, and as it stays, what happens to them? They dilate, and eventually the walls break, and you get these things that they call bullae, B-U-L-L-A-E, which means a big area, and they're usually air-filled, so now they are air-filled. So that's what happens in this kind of case. And this is just a closer up microscopic to show macrophages that have actually phagocytized the carbon particles. That's what these things are. Yeah. Wait a minute, wait, that does. Does this mean air trapping?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And again, you understand the reason for air trapping now, don't you? I guess you do. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so there's a set of conditions called pneumoconiosis, and then what this really means is dust in the lung. And here are things that can cause that. Because you know, one, the carbon that we talked about before, coal dust. Silicon, iron dust, asbestos, silver, lead, bismuth, and that ton of other things that can be particulate matter that get in the lung, and they end up causing the same kind of reaction you saw with the coal dust. This is from silicon. By the way, what is silicon? How many of you from Florida? What do you walk on?
Sand.
Nope, you don't walk on here.
Sand.
Sand. So, what is silica?
Sand.
Okay. So, sand can get in the lungs and cause this kind of problem. So, you think a desert-dwelling animal like a camel might have a problem with this? Hmm?
Yes.
Nope. Why not?
They close their nostrils.
Now, you look at your nose,
Yeah.
look at the nose of a dog or anything, most of the animals, you know, cats, and you see a nice big opening there. And what's the difference in a camel?
Mm-hmm.
They have a big flap that they can close off.
Yes.
And that way, in situations like dust storms, sandstorms in the desert, they shut that down.
Mm-hmm.
So that they don't really inhale a lot of sand. Unless the wind is really blowing and keep getting it up in the air like that, it's not a problem. So camels really don't have this. But humans that work around areas where they use a lot of sand, by the way, what do you think they might use sand for, other than walking on a nice beach?
Sand.
Yeah, they use it to make glass. So there are actually silicon mines that mine silica so that they can send it to people like Corning. And Corning, I mentioned Corning because it's a big glass making company. They make a lot of dishes and things like that actually out of glass. So that's where you might see this kind of stuff. It can be an industrial disease. What about this one?
Asbestos. It's from carpet.
This is another one that's inhaled. And you can see the nice name there. So what's going on here? Asbestos. And how many of you know the disease that goes along with that? What do you call it? You've been watching the lawyers. The way to pronounce that word in the U.S., using U.S. English, is mesothelioma. When you were in histology and you took a little part in histology about embryology, what do they call it? Do they call it endoderm, ectoderm, and what? Mesoderm, not mesoderm. So it's not mesothelioma, but that's the lawyer's stuff. Watch the commercials. No, seriously, watch the commercials when the guy says, oh, they did you wrong, we need to soon call us. They call it mesothelioma. When you watch another one and they say, we have information, we can tell you how you can deal with this situation and that sort of stuff, then it's an MD standing around there talking, what does he call it? Mesothelioma, because that's the way we pronounce it in U.S. English. Okay, so that's one of the areas of damaged lung, and that might be a tumor, it might not be. But a lot of connective tissue forms when these things are around. So it could just be that, or it could actually be the neoplasm. I'll show you the neoplasm in a minute. That's the raw element, and that's what it looks like when you look at the fibers that come from it. And make sure I'm pointing to the right thing. Here are the crystals in tissue. That's actually asbestos, and there are inflammatory cells all around it. That's actually the neoplasm histologically, and there it is on the surface of a human lung. All of this, that's normal lung there. All of this stuff hanging off is the mesothelioma. And this one is a histology too. This is actually from an animal model, and this is a mouse. And you can see it here, and it's actually inside the lung as well. Okay. Some other kinds of things, tattoos, dyes, and so forth. Tattoos again. Identification in the horse. And this is what it looks like histologically. It accumulates in macrophages and in lymphatics underneath the skin. So how hard is it to get rid of a tattoo? Very. See where it is? Way down there. And again, this is just showing the macrophages and their accumulation of the dye. Other things, carotenoids, vitamin A precursors. And that's the structure. And of course these are, yeah.
Why don't the macrophages migrate and then cause the dye to migrate, I guess?
She asked a good question. Why don't the macrophages migrate? They do. And they do cause some dilution in the tattoo. If you've known anybody that had a tattoo for a number of years, is the tattoo as bright as it was at the beginning? No, it fades some. That's from that very process. Okay? Now, they put so much dye in there that it's not likely that it's all of it and go back completely to normal. It's not going to look that way. Okay. But it will fade over time. Okay. Here are some of the precursors, alpha carotenoids, beta carotenoids, and these guys. Xanthophyll. What's xanthophyll associated with? Anybody from the Northeast in here? Like New England? Pacific Northwest? You guys don't have a clue why I'm saying that. But in the fall, what happens in New York State, Vermont, and all that?
The plants turn.
They turn? Yeah, the leaves change color. Okay? This is due to xanthophyllic kinds of pigments.
Thank you.
They're all relatives of chlorophyll. Okay. So, where do we find this stuff in animals? Well, what's this animal? That's a what? Okay, and this is a Guernsey. And Guernseys have a lot of carotenoid pigment. Jerseys do too, but you don't see it on the outside. That's because it's inside in the fat. The Jersey has a black nose, so you don't really see it. But the Guernseys have a lot of lighter color here, so you can pick it up easily. The yellowish discoloration. Now what about this? Actually, this isn't from this Guernsey. This is from an Angus, grass-fed. Right. Grass-fed, he's right. That's what it is, a grass-fed cow. And that's why the fat is this yellow, because of the carotenoid pigment. And horses naturally have a lot of carotenoid pigment too, again, from grasses, the things they eat. So they will have yellow colored fat. Now that's important to remember that kind of thing. And Jerseys and Guernseys and those sorts of animals and grass-fed cattle. Because you want to be able to differentiate jaundice from carotenoid pigments, okay? So that's why it's important to know that. Okay, some of the endogenous pigments we're going to talk about, lipogenic ones first, and lipofuscin, which is the first one, and steroid. And actually, they're pretty much sort of the same. This is just an acid-fast variant of lipofuscin, steroid is. So if you look at them structurally, they're very, very similar. And you've seen this before. Remember that?
Yep.
Okay. And what is this process called? Where organelles are involved? Autophagy. And what do you end up with? Over here. Residual bodies. Okay? And this is just showing some of this with EM. The EM is down here, and this is what it looks like. And that's EM. That's a growth, but it's black and white, so it's hard to see. It's actually in the gut. And histologically, that's what it looks like outside the cells. It's black and white again, so it's hard to tell. But you did, well, you will see this. I know most of you haven't gone anywhere near that, but you will see this in the digital images. And this is the same thing as that was, where the intestines were actually discolored as brown color. And this is, again, due to lipofuscin accumulation. What do you think they call this? Common name for this?
Brown coat.
Yeah, real simple. Where's my man back there? That always says the simplest answer.
I wanted someone else to get the answer this time.
Yeah. Okay, here is the situation in dairy cattle, in a dairy cow and a normal cow. This one is the one that has the accumulation of a lipofuscin pigment, and this one doesn't. So which one of these is the oldest?
The black one.
Yeah, this one. That's the oldest one. And this is what you'll find in some of the abattoirs. What's an abattoir anyway? You know? A slaughterhouse. This is what you find in some of the slaughterhouses in Minnesota, Michigan. Anybody got any idea what the connection would be? They're hairy dairy states. You can find this in Vermont too, New Hampshire. They're hairy dairy states. Now, why did I say abattoir? When the cows get old and they can't produce anymore, mainly they can't have a calf. So what happens? They can't make milk, so it's time to get rid of them. Now, if they have been worked very hard over a long period of time, then you're likely to find some of this lipogenic pigment in places like the heart, maybe in the liver, okay? Sometimes in the kidney. And this one is from an old dairy cow. And this one is from a younger cow. And what does that look like histologically? Remember seeing that picture before? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this stuff accumulates in the lysosomes, and those that are right next to the nucleus are really part of the what? Starts with the G.
Golgi body?
Yeah, not Golgi body, Golgi apparatus. Well, I call it that. I don't know, they may call it Golgi body now. But anyway, that's this lysosomal accumulation of lipogenic pigment or lipofuscin. And if we look at it with H&E, it gives you this nice golden brown color. And if we look at it in the CNS, we see it looking like this. It's over here too. Well, this is a special stain. This one is actually designed to stain myelin. That's why you see this kind of greenish blue coloration here. And this one is a regular H&E stain. So it doesn't show up as nice golden brown over here because it doesn't have the same parts of the dye in the stain. And here are some of the manifestations. And what do they call these things? And old folk like me call them liver spots. Okay? And here's another place it can accumulate. This is looking at the eye, the interior of the eye, and this is, what is that? This is called a fundoscopic examination, and this is actually the fundic part of it, which is actually the what? Optic nerve, okay, or the optic disc. That's right in the fundus, and right over here next to it is another area called a what? The macula. And where is the most concentrated area of focus?
Macula?
In the macula. And that is why I walk around with this. Because I have what is called macular degeneration. Okay? And if we look at it under the electron microscope, we see this, which is right at the back of the retina. Here is a layer of blood vessels. You see the erythrocytes. And here are some epithelial cells that sit right on the outside of those blood vessels, and the layer of rods and cones is right above that. These things are called pigments.